Hi everyone, and welcome back to our storytelling channel. Before we dive into today's emotional and inspiring story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. If you enjoy tales filled with love, twists, and hidden truths, this is the place for you. Now, get comfortable, relax, and let's begin. Milwaukee, late summer. The breeze from Lake Michigan swept through downtown as if trying to chase away the lingering heat. While most young people were enjoying their break at the beach or lounging in air-conditioned cafes, Emily Carter, 24, wandered across the construction site of Turner Heights with a sketchpad in hand. As the only daughter of the renowned architect David Carter, Emily had grown up surrounded by blueprints and dinner conversations about load-bearing walls. But instead of following in her father's footsteps as an architect, she chose interior design, a softer world closer to emotions than equations. Today, she had been assigned to survey the ground floor of Turner Heights, a 32-story mixed-use skyscraper and one of the state's biggest ongoing projects. Her father was the chief architect, and the construction was being handled by a major firm named Turner & Sons. Weaving through piles of bricks and the screeching sound of metal cutters, Emily nearly slipped on a patch of wet cement when a strong hand caught her from behind. "Careful there," a deep voice said. She turned around. A tall man in a paint-splattered work jacket stood there, his gaze both serious and kind. His amber eyes sparkled beneath a dusty hard hat. "Sorry," she said. "I didn't see the puddle. No witties. Around here, if you're staring at the ceiling and not watching your step, chances of kissing the ground are 100%. Emily laughed at his dry humor. They exchanged a few light remarks. She mentioned she was a recent interior design graduate working on the commercial spaces of Turner Heights. He just smiled and said, "I'm Jack Turner. And you are?" "Emily. Emily Carter." They shook hands. His grip was warm and rough, slightly sticky from cement, hands shaped by honest labor. Their encounters became more frequent and increasingly natural. They'd run into each other while she surveyed the site or while he was checking reinforcement frames. Oddly, Jack, despite being a construction worker, seemed to have a deep understanding of structural and design issues. One day, while Emily was explaining how she wanted to optimize natural lighting on the ground floor, Jack gently interrupted. "If you use high reflective paint on the interior walls, you'll cut at least 10% of the lighting costs." Emily blinked. She had considered that option, but didn't expect someone in a hard hat and cement-stained jeans to suggest it so precisely. She joked, "Where did you study again?" "MIT?" Jack chuckled. "Somewhere close enough." Emily became intrigued. Jack was warm and grounded, yet always kept a piece of himself hidden, just enough to stir curiosity without inviting suspicion. One weekend evening, Emily called him. "Are you free tonight? I want to invite you to dinner." "You sure about that?" Jack asked. "Your father won't kill me, will he?" "It's just dinner," she replied. "He needs to know who you really are. And if he says something out of line, that's his problem, not ours." Jack hesitated, then agreed. He could feel her determination, a quality he had admired since the day they met. Dinner was held at the Carters' stately home, where every item, from the chandelier to the abstract paintings, exuded the taste of a high-end architectural family. Jack wore a simple white shirt and neat trousers. Emily smiled, pleased that he hadn't overdressed or tried to impress. He was just being himself. David Carter walked in, eyes sharp as always, immediately sizing up Jack. After a few polite exchanges, he asked, "So you're working on Turner Heights?" "Yes, sir. As a construction worker." "You could say that." Emily's father raised an eyebrow. "My daughter tells me you have a college degree? In what field?" "Civil engineering." "What kind of degree?" "Graduated with honors. Stanford 5 years ago." David's eyes narrowed. A pause hung heavily in the air. "And yet, here you are laying cement? That's inspiring." His tone dripped with sarcasm. Jack simply smiled. "I wanted to start from the foundation. If one day I'm making high-level decisions, I want to understand things from the ground up." David smirked. "A very humble philosophy, but not very realistic. You'll take 30 years to get where I am now." Emily clenched her fists under the table. Jack remained calm, polite, and composed. but his eyes revealed a different story, full of silent calculation. After dinner, David called Emily into his study. "You're serious about this guy?" "I trust him, Dad. He doesn't belong in your world, Emily. Don't waste your time." Emily stood still, staring at the man who once taught her to never judge a book by its cover, now doing exactly that. And in that moment, she decided she would not back down. As Jack left the house, he looked back at the classic, elegant building where the famous architect had sized him up and labeled him unworthy based solely on cement on his shirt. He smiled, not with bitterness, but with quiet resolve. "Time to begin phase 2, he whispered. The next morning, Emily sipped her coffee while replaying every word from the dinner in her mind. Her father's scornful expression, Jack's calm responses, the heavy air that hung around the table. It all left a bitter aftertaste. She had hoped for some awkward politeness at worst, but David Carter had been cold, dismissive, and outright condescending. The kind of man who prided himself on being progressive, yet failed his own ideals when it came to his daughter's personal life. At the same time, she couldn't stop thinking about Jack's composure. He had taken the blows without flinching, not defensively, not with wounded pride, but with the restraint of someone who knew something no one else did. That thought stayed with her. Back at Turner Heights, the construction site buzzed as usual. Jack was in his work boots again, hauling steel rods with the other crew, joking around with the bricklayers like nothing had happened. Emily approached him cautiously. "You okay after last night?" He looked up and smiled. "I've been through worse. I'm fiend." She frowned. "You didn't have to let him talk to you like that." Jack wiped his hands on a rag. "Let's just say, people reveal more about themselves when you don't interrupt their judgment." She studied him. "You're not just some guy with a degree who chose to do labor. There's something more." Jack didn't deny it. "There is, but not something I'm ready to share. Not yet." "Why?" "Because I want you to believe in me for who I am, not for what I have." Emily was quiet. Then she nodded. "I already do." That afternoon, Emily had a meeting with her father in his downtown office. It wasn't about Jack, at least not officially. She was there to present her revised design plans for the lobby of Turner Heights. David reviewed her sketches without much reaction. "The proportions are fine. The materials are expected. You're playing it safe, Emily." "I'm balancing aesthetics and budget," she replied. He nodded. Then, almost offhandedly, he added, "Jack Turner, are you still seeing him?" "Yes." David folded his arms. "I looked into him. No job records prior to working here. His degree checks out, but he hasn't registered with any engineering firm." "Odd, don't you think?" Emily stiffened. "You had him investigated?" "I call it protecting my daughter." She stood. "He's not a criminal, Dad. Maybe he just doesn't fit your mold of success." David raised an eyebrow. "You know how hard I've worked for our name, our standing. What would people say if you married a what?" she snapped. "Say it." He paused. "A construction worker." Emily glared at him. "If you can't see the value in someone who builds with his hands, then maybe everything you've built is hollow." She left the room, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Over the next few days, something shifted at the site. Word spread quickly in a place like Turner Heights. The other workers, who had always admired Jack's quiet competence, started wondering why the boss's daughter was dating him. Rumors flew that he was secretly rich, a genius, a spy from OSHA. Even the site manager, Hank, pulled Jack aside one morning and grunted, "You're not just a laborer, are you?" Jack just laughed. "Would it matter if I were?" Hank stared at him. "No, but I'd sleep better knowing the guy who rechecked our load-bearing columns yesterday has more than calluses to back up his math." Jack didn't answer, but that night, he stayed behind after the crews left, reviewing the blueprints again. There was something off about the 7th-floor duct installation. It wasn't aligned with the revised HVAC routes. He made a note to flag it. As he rolled up the plans, he heard a voice behind him. "You act like you own this building." He turned. It was Nathan, David Carter's junior associate and protege. Always impeccably dressed, always watching. "I care about what I work on," Jack replied. Nathan tilted his head. "You're just a laborer. You're punching above your weight with Emily. You must know that." Jack smiled faintly. "I don't believe in weights. I believe in value." Nathan took a step closer. "You're hiding something. I can feel it." Jack's eyes met his, unwavering. Maybe I am. But maybe you should focus more on what's on the plans and less on who's holding the pencil. Nathan walked away, but the tension lingered. That weekend, Richard Turner, founder and CEO of Turner & Sons, returned from a trip to Switzerland. His presence was discreet, but immediately felt. Everyone on site straightened up. Site managers triple-checked protocols. Subcontractors rushed to meet deadlines. Jack knew his father wouldn't approach him openly. Not yet. Their agreement was clear. Jack would work under the radar, experience the site as a laborer. No shortcuts, no privileges. But that didn't stop Richard from checking in quietly. From his office trailer, he watched the site with narrowed eyes. Then he turned to his assistant. "How's Jack doing?" "Quiet. Reliable. The workers like him. Carter's daughter's been around him a lot." Richard smirked. "David Carter's daughter? That's poetic. Should we step in?" "No," Richard said. "Let play out. Let's see who sees the real value first, the father or the daughter." Back at Emily's apartment, she and Jack shared takeout on her balcony overlooking the city skyline. The lights of Turner Heights glowed faintly in the distance. She leaned into him. "You know, sometimes I wonder if I know you at all." Jack smiled. "Maybe that's the point. You're learning who I am before learning what I am." She looked up. "Promise me one thing. Anything. Whatever your truth is, when the time comes, you'll tell me. Before anyone else." He nodded. "I promise." And beneath the Milwaukee stars, Jack Turner, man of cement-stained hands, secret heritage, and silent strength, tightened his grip around hers, knowing that very soon, everything was about to change. There was something poetic about the way Turner Heights rose toward the sky, steel beams and concrete floors slowly layering the dreams of an empire. Emily often stood at the edge of the fenced-off site, sketchbook in hand, watching workers move like parts of a living machine. But her eyes always found Jack, somewhere in the chaos, calm and grounded like the building's foundation itself. He never flaunted, never tried to win her over with grand gestures. But every little thing he did, tightening a bolt no one else noticed was loose, lending his sandwich to a hungry coworker, or adjusting her hard hat when it slipped, made her feel like he was quietly building something with her, too. It wasn't long before they began spending evenings together regularly. Dinner in her small apartment, walks through the Riverwalk, quiet nights listening to old jazz records. The rhythm between them was natural, as if they had known each other in another life. And still, Jack remained a mystery. One Saturday afternoon, Jack invited Emily to a job site he'd been volunteering on the weekends, a low-income housing project funded by anonymous donors. It was a modest place on the city's south side, nothing like the sleek luxury of Turner Heights. But Emily was moved by the sight of Jack hauling drywall with a group of teenagers and retired veterans. "Why this?" she asked him after the shift. He shrugged, wiping sweat from his brow. "Because home should be built for everyone, not just the ones who can afford the skyline view." She stared at him, stunned. "You're not who you say you are." He didn't deny it. "I'm exactly who I say I am. I just haven't said everything." She wanted to push, but something told her to wait. He had layers, and she would peel them away one at a time when he was ready. That night, she kissed him for the first time, not out of romantic impulse, but as a quiet answer to a silent truth between them. Meanwhile, David Carter noticed the shift in his daughter. She smiled more. She laughed like she hadn't in years, and that made him nervous. He invited her to Sunday brunch at the country club. Emily arrived in a sundress, glowing, her hair slightly windblown. Her father noticed immediately. "You seem well," he said. "I am," she replied. He didn't ask about Jack. He didn't need to. But when she excused herself to take a call, a familiar face approached David. "Nathan," he greeted his young associate. "What are you doing here?" "Checking in," Nathan replied. "I've been digging a bit more into Jack Turner." David arched an eyebrow. "You're still on that?" "There's something strange. His work record disappears 5 years ago. No tax documents. No social media. No address listed beyond a temporary P.O. box." David frowned. Maybe he values privacy. Or maybe he's hiding something. David waved it off. Even if he is, what could it possibly be? He's a laborer. Nathan leaned in. What if he's not? A week later, Turner Heights hit its milestone, the halfway point. Floors up to 16 were now complete. The Turner & Sons executive team hosted a small celebration on-site. Nothing too flashy, but enough to honor the project's progress. Emily was invited as part of the design team. Jack, still in his orange vest, kept a respectful distance. But that night, as the string lights buzzed above folding tables and beers were passed around in coolers, Jack walked up behind Emily and whispered, "Dance with me?" She turned, laughing. "There's no music. We don't need it." And so they danced, slowly, amidst the hum of a diesel generator and the scent of fresh lumber. The other workers clapped. Someone whistled. For a moment, they were just two people falling in love, surrounded by bricks and beams instead of roses and candles. Someone snapped a photo. The next morning, it made its way into the inbox of Nathan Reynolds. He printed it and placed it on David Carter's desk. She's not just dating him. She's in love. David studied the image, his daughter in Jack's arms, smiling like she'd never smiled before. Something twisted in his chest. That week, Emily came home late from a client meeting to find Jack waiting outside her building. He looked serious, hands in his pockets. "I have something for you," he said. She followed him to his truck. He opened the tailgate and revealed a handcrafted wooden chair. Rustic, beautiful, sanded smooth, and curved perfectly to fit the contours of the back. "You made this?" she asked. He nodded. "For your reading nook." She laughed, touched beyond words. "I didn't even tell you I needed one." "I noticed," he said. "You always end up reading in that corner, crouched over like a tired librarian." She ran her hands along the grain of the wood. "You're the only person who ever saw that." Jack looked at her. Really looked. "I want to build more than chairs with you." And there it was. A proposal, not in words, but in weight. She stepped forward, wrapped her arms around him, and whispered, "Ido." They didn't call it an engagement. There was no ring yet. But their decision was made in shared glances and understood silences. The following day, Emily told her father. David was silent for a long time. Then, "You're making a mistake." "I'm making a choice," she replied. He stood, paced behind his desk. "You think this is love. But love without foundation collapses. And he has no foundation." She met his gaze. "Maybe you just don't recognize it because it's not made of marble and awards." He said nothing more. But as she left his office, David's jaw clenched, and Jack Turner's name etched deeper into his mind. Later that evening, Richard Turner called his son. "I heard congratulations are in order," he said. Jack chuckled on the other end. "Word travels fast. I also heard from Carter. He's rattled." "I'm not surprised. Are you sure you want to go through with this? The charade, the waiting?" Jack exhaled. "I want her to love me for who I am. Not the name, not the company. Just me." Richard paused. "She does." Jack stared into the twilight. "I know." And as the stars blinked to life over Milwaukee, Jack Turner, heir to an empire dressed as a laborer, felt more certain than ever that some structures weren't built with cranes or concrete. They were built with trust, and his was nearly ready for unveiling. August in Milwaukee meant heat that clung to the skin like a second shirt. The concrete slabs of Turner Heights radiated the sun's intensity, turning the construction site into a simmering steel oven. Workers moved slower, shirts drenched, hard hats streaked with sweat. Jack Turner was on the 11th floor that morning, reviewing the placement of steel reinforcement for the rooftop water tank. He didn't carry a clipboard like a supervisor. He used a pocket-sized notebook, the kind that could fit into his back jeans pocket and survive a cement spill. As he scanned the blueprints taped to a post, his brows furrowed. Something didn't align. He stepped back, studied the supporting structure for the water tank again. The load distribution appeared consistent at first glance, but the column underneath, column 11F, had been adjusted 3 days earlier due to a last-minute plumbing reroute. That change hadn't been updated on the new version of the structural plan. Jack's eyes narrowed. The shift in that column's base meant that the overhead load might now be off by a critical margin, enough to cause stress over time or failure under full capacity. Downstairs, the Turner & Sons executives had just arrived with David Carter and Nathan Reynolds in tow. Today was one of the monthly walk-throughs with investors and city officials, a PR dance wrapped in safety vests. Emily was there, too, reviewing furniture layouts with a subcontractor when she spotted her father from across the slab. She debated whether to wave, then decided not to. Richard Turner, imposing in his tailored suit and hard hat, shook hands with the city engineer, while David gestured toward the far end of the structure. This corner here will feature a suspended garden with steel mesh walkways. A bold yet elegant transition between urban structure and natural flow, he explained proudly. Richard gave a polite nod, but didn't speak much. His eyes kept drifting upward. He was looking for someone. Back on the 11th floor, Jack was checking the column's connection to the beam structure when he heard a faint crack. Not a loud one, but the kind that steel doesn't make unless it's stressed. He kneeled, placing his ear near the junction. Another crack. His pulse quickened. He rose and rushed down the emergency stairwell, skipping 2 steps at a time. On the 9th floor, the investors and city inspectors were being shown around. David Carter was in full form, confident, articulate, completely unaware that above him, structural stress was building in silence. Jack burst into the hallway, eyes scanning for the safety supervisor. "Hank, where's Hank?" One of the crew pointed to the main stairwell. Jack ran, breathless. "Hank, we got an issue with 11F. Column load may be off. Stress signs near the tank base." Hank stared. "You sure? There were planned changes last week. Plumbing reroute. I don't think they recalculated the vertical load path. There's audible cracking." Before Hank could reply, the building trembled, a subtle but distinct shudder, like a muscle flinching involuntarily. A shout echoed from above. "Everyone out now." Jack's voice thundered through the radio Hank snatched from his belt. "Evacuate. Clear floors 9 to 12. Now." Sirens sounded. Whistles blew. Workers dropped tools and bolted. Guests were rushed towards stairwells. David and Richard were guided out in confusion. "What's going on?" David demanded. But Richard didn't answer. He knew that voice, that urgency. He turned to the site manager. "Who gave the order to evacuate?" "Some worker on 11, Jack, I think. He said a column's compromised." Richard's jaw clenched. "It's not just some worker." Outside, the site was in controlled chaos. Emergency protocols snapped into place. Fire trucks and ambulances arrived within minutes, though there were no injuries. Just fear. After 30 tense minutes, the top floors were rechecked by engineers. They confirmed what Jack had warned. The load-bearing column had indeed shifted more than acceptable limits. Had it not been detected, it could have led to a partial collapse once the water tank was filled. David Carter stood beside Nathan, silent. He didn't know what to say. Later that evening, Jack sat on the back of his truck, legs dangling, shirt still stained with dirt and sweat. Emily walked up slowly and handed him a bottle of water. "You saved them," she said. "I just did what anyone should have done." "No," she said, firm. "You saw what even the engineers didn't." He took the bottle but didn't drink. "Does your father know it was me?" She hesitated. "Yes." "And he's shaken." Jack looked at her. "You're still okay being with me? After all this?" Emily tilted her head. "Are you kidding? I'm thinking about proposing to you now." Jack laughed, tension cracking like dry plaster. He leaned his head against her shoulder. "Thanks for believing in the guy with dirty boots." Emily whispered, "I believe in your heart, not your shoes." That same night, in a penthouse far above Milwaukee, David Carter sat at his desk, staring at the safety report. Highlighted in red was the name of the man who prevented a potential disaster. Jack Turner. A knock on his office door broke the silence. It was Nathan. He was right, Nathan muttered. Turner saw it before anyone else. I misjudged him." David didn't respond. He simply folded the report and placed it into a drawer. And for the first time in many years, he questioned if he had forgotten what it meant to build something worth standing on. Meanwhile, across town, Richard Turner stood before a window in his high-rise office, sipping whiskey. His assistant entered. "Everything's under control. No injuries. Engineers are reinforcing 11F as we speak." Richard nodded. "And Jack?" "Outside. Quiet. Like always." Richard exhaled. Let the boy finish his mission. But soon, he turned back toward the window. He won't be able to hide anymore. Early autumn in Milwaukee cast a golden chill across the city. Maple trees along the boulevard trembled in the morning wind. The Turner Tower, now nearing completion, stood tall, its steel bones sheathed in glass, reflecting a silvery sky. Quiet and imposing, it was a monument to ambition and to something deeper, soon to be revealed. David Carter sat in his top-floor office, the final blueprint of Turner Tower spread before him. Yet his eyes weren't on the drawing. They were distant, focused elsewhere, on a name, Jack Turner, the young man whose quiet eyes he had once mocked. And now, the man who would save his design, who might even marry his daughter. The phone rang. "Mr. Richard Turner would like to see you," said a soft voice. "In the president's office." Right away, David stood. His legs were steady, but something inside him wasn't. The president's office on the 42nd floor was nothing short of majestic. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered an unbroken view of Milwaukee. A massive oak desk stood at the center, but it wasn't the furniture that commanded attention. It was the man standing by the window, glass of whiskey in hand. Jack Turner, not in a dusty work jacket, not with cement on his hands. He wore a tailored black suit, the silver Turner and Sons pin gleaming on his lapel. He turned as David entered, and there was no trace of nervousness in his demeanor. "Good afternoon, Mr. Carter," Jack said calmly. David froze. "It's you," he managed. Jack nodded. "I'm Richard Turner's son, and as of today, I'm officially the heir to Turner and Sons." David didn't sit. He couldn't. He stood there, like a man who had just realized he'd been standing on the wrong foundation. "Why didn't you tell me?" David asked quietly. Jack gave a faint smile. "Because I wanted to be seen for my work, not my last name." "You plan to pretend forever?" "No, just long enough to understand every bolt, every brick, every worker whose sweat makes this company real. If I'm going to run this empire, I want to do it as someone who's lived the very bottom of it." David slowly took a seat, humbled in a way he hadn't been in decades. "You've taught me something," he admitted. "I've spent my life designing buildings, but somewhere along the way, I forgot how to see people." Jack didn't gloat. "I don't blame you. You were just trying to protect your daughter. And in doing so, I almost drove her away," David said, voice cracking slightly. Outside the office, Emily walked down the hallway, holding a folder with interior design plans for the lobby. She hadn't expected to see her father and Jack face to face so soon, but when the assistant nodded, she entered and froze. Jack turned and met her eyes. "You know now?" he asked softly. Emily smiled. "I've known for a while. I just waited for you to tell me." David looked at his daughter, then at Jack. "You chose someone not for his name or wealth, but for his heart. And today, you reminded me of something I once believed, that true love is never measured by status." Jack turned to David. "Mr. Carter, even though you misjudged me, I'd be honored if you continued to lead the design team. Turner and Sons needs people like you." David paused, emotion flickering behind his sharp features. "And I need to relearn from people like you." That afternoon, the Turner Heights atrium was filled with guests, investors, engineers, workers, and reporters. Richard Turner stood proudly on the stage, preparing to announce the official successor to his company. When he declared the name Jack Turner, the crowd murmured in surprise. Some clapped. Others exchanged glances. But the moment Jack stepped forward, poised and confident, the room quieted. "I don't want to stand here because I'm Richard Turner's son," Jack began. "I want to be here because I know the weight of steel beam, because I've shoveled concrete, because I've sweated under the same sun as the people who build these dreams." He paused, voice steady. "And on that journey, I met the woman I love. Someone who taught me that you don't fall in love with titles. You fall in love with someone who's willing to build with you, one brick at a time." He turned toward Emily, who stood near the back of the room, eyes shimmering with pride. The applause thundered like rolling steel. A month later, on the rooftop garden of Turner Heights, once nearly compromised due to a structural flaw, guests gathered again. But this time for a wedding, not an extravagant affair. No opulent gowns or glitzy chandeliers. Just friends, workers, architects, and laughter under open sky. Emily wore a simple white dress. She walked down the aisle toward Jack, the man once dismissed as a nobody, now her everything. David Carter, solemn and proud, walked beside her. When he reached Jack, he took Emily's hand and placed it in Jack's. "I've been called a great architect," he said quietly, "but you're the one who built the most solid structure in my daughter's life." Jack gripped Emily's hand, eyes never leaving hers. And when he kissed her beneath the steel beams and morning light, beneath the very tower that bore their story, it was clear. This wasn't just a story about buildings. It was about building trust, building love, brick by brick, with nothing more than a pair of cement-stained hands.